What's good, everybody? Welcome into another episode of Land Grant Podcast Network's Power 2 podcast. As always, I'm your host, Jordan, and I'm here with my co-host, DJ.
Yes, it is I, blessing you with my presence yet again.
You could consider it a gift for the holiday season.
This is your Christmas gift. I hope you realize me being alive still is your Christmas gift. Merry Christmas.
And happy Hanukkah and all the other ones.
And happy Kwanzaa. Kwanzaa and Hanukkah, they start on the same day this year, just so y'all know. Get your kanaras, your menorahs, get them candles, get to lighting.
We out here.
Anyway.
DJ, how are you?
I'm still defrosting from being up in frigid ass Pennsylvania. But we'll talk about what happened there when we get there. But yeah, I'm good. I finished my Christmas shopping today. I just finished it about 25 minutes ago. So everybody who is getting a gift out of me, I have purchased it.
What'd you get?
I got you my I told you, me being alive and waking up every day is your gift.
I thought you were talking to the people.
No, I was talking to you.
Oh. Okay.
What'd you give me?
My present is a present. Kiss my ass.
Exactly. I could just wrap myself and slap a bow on. Anyways, yeah, so everybody who's getting a gift on me already got it. And my mom got me my gift early, which was a new game for my Switch. So I'm very excited about that, which I'm ready to go play that real quick. But yes. How are you on this lovely couple days before Christmas Day?
I'm all right. Yeah, I'm all right. I'm
nodding.
I'm
nodding.
I'm ready for Christmas. Like, I'm not super into the holidays. I'm sure that is so surprising.
Shocker.
But yeah, I'm ready for Christmas. I think that I got my wife a really good present.
Ooh.
The problem is, and this is, take notes for anyone who is not a great gift giver. The easiest thing to do is to ask them what they want in advance.
In advance.
Which like sounds super simple. Or just like if your significant other is anything like mine, just save links of things that they send you randomly throughout the year. So then you know what they want, and then you can buy it, but you know they want it, but you know, and especially if they're anything like mine, they're going to forget that they asked you for it or that they ever even sent it to you. So it's what they want, but they forgot. It's a great surprise. The problem is I did not do that this year because it's like indirectly that, right? It's something that I know that she's wanted previously, but I don't know how much she wants it now. So I'm like, I swing back and forth between like, she's going to love this gift and like, maybe I should have just went the more traditional route of what I typically do and just like wait until she sends me something and get specifically that. It's like 2 degrees outside of what I typically do.
I'm sure she'll love it.
Yeah. So
I mean, you got her a gift. I'm sure she'll be not like bare minimum shit, but like you thought of her, you thought about it, and you got it for her. And it may not have been directly something she asked for, but I'm sure like if it's something she's wanted, she probably still wants it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing is it's a style thing. You know what I mean? Like, you know,
I'm assuming it's a fashion item
of a sort, right? And so it's like I could get this and she likes it, but I could have gotten this in a different color or style or company, and she, you know what I mean? So it's kind of like, so I like go back and forth on like she's gonna love it and like, damn, I should have got something else.
Well, it's also if it's what I think it is, it's also highly exchangeable. So if she doesn't like love it, she can go take it and be like, this was a gift, and they will have options for her to like exchange it if it's like that bad.
Thankfully, well, it's not. That's the thing. It's definitely not bad. It's a more of a matter of preference, which is only like an ego thing because I really like to get her things that like I know she's like really gonna love, and like I don't have so much of an ego that I'd be mad at her for like like returning it, it was
Yeah,
just
yeah.
damn, I could have went harder than that. You know what I mean? I wasn't really hooping. I put up some shots and I missed too many of them. You know what I mean? So
No, it wasn't really hooping. I also
yeah,
do the thing where like if you are, because I'm not the best gift giver either. Like I'm the type of person I like to give people things that they need. I don't like to give people just a whole bunch of rudimentary random shit. Or like if I know that you collect certain things or like whatever, I kind of always like go towards that. So I'm the type like if I just hear a friend or a significant other or someone like kind of say like, I need an air tag or I need blah blah blah. Like I keep a running notes in my phone of like mom, dad, whoever person, and anytime I hear them say that they need something, like I'll find a quick way to like write it down. So then like when birthdays come up or like whatever, I'm like, oh, I remember 2 months ago, mom said she needed some new slippers, so I'm gonna buy her some
yeah,
new slippers. So yeah,
yeah. I'm like that too. I just don't like for like I don't really spend money on myself. So I typically just like buy things randomly, except for shoes. So I just kind of like buy things randomly. So like things like that, I typically just buy like when if I have some like extra money. So when it comes to like birthdays and Christmas, I typically try to do the things that they want.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, and I'm also like super excited for this hired break. I'm so tired. I have like a couple of things that I need to do throughout the break, like to like fix up my house. I got to be a man for a couple of days,
Oh
but I
my
also
gosh,
need like
however will you survive?
I need no. I'm not complaining about it. I was just saying I have to do that, but I also need like a couple of days where I'm just, as you say, where I just lay flat. Like I ran some errands today and I had to stop at like 3 different places. And it really
Same.
wasn't that everything in New York is bad because you have to walk, but it really wasn't that bad. But I came home and I literally just like sat down. And I was just like, ugh. And I was like gone for like 2 hours. So I'm like, yeah, I need this break more than anything. So I gotta it's a weird day because of the holidays. I have to knock out both of the podcasts today. But then after that,
Yeah.
I'm gonna take like 2-3 days. Obviously, Christmas day after that, and the day after that, probably won't do anything. And then I'll get
Yes.
back into the swing of life. Um,
I feel the same way. I'm like, I just am ready for NBA basketball. Christmas Day is probably one of my favorite days in basketball, besides obviously playoffs. So I'm ready for a little NBA Christmas basketball and the Beyonce concert with, the football game that's around it. And like, yeah, laying flat and just fully just immersing myself in nothingness. Like, I can't wait to do it. Like, as soon as we lost that game on Saturday, I was like, I get my break. Like, I'm sorry, I don't mean to be funny, but these people that ran me ragged. But yes, okay, so to the news.
let's just get our let's
Or
just
to the ads.
yeah, let's just get the ads out the way real quick, and then we can just run through the show. We can be professional. So we're gonna take the early ad break as we're supposed to, and often forget, and then we
It's
yeah
not a we, it's
yeah
you.
yeah, and so we'll be right back after the ads for those of you on the podcast platform. What's good, everybody? Welcome back to the Power 2 podcast. For those of you who watch on YouTube, as you should, not as you should, because I don't watch things on YouTube. I say this every week. But for those of you who watch on YouTube,
But
we
you
didn't go
should
anywhere.
still
We didn't go
just to
anywhere.
get the views up.
We didn't go anywhere. But definitely, as we like to say, follow us, subscribe on YouTube at Get Defensive Sports Network. Whether you're going to watch on YouTube or you are going to listen as you usually do, we would appreciate the subscription, which like that's what it is, but it shouldn't be because subscription makes it sound like you pay for it.
Yeah, but YouTube was around before all
Yeah,
that.
so it's just like
So
yeah,
yeah.
we would appreciate the subscription to get some numbers up. You can also follow us on Instagram at Get Defensive Sports Network as well. DJ has been using the Instagram. I've been peeping it. I've been seeing the stories pop up. So you know what I'm saying? You can follow us there.
We are
But yeah,
active. We post sports news. We post my Get Ready With Me's. We post everything.
we out here. So let's do what you were trying to do. Let's get into the news. What do we got?
Well, now that we have finally stopped villainizing him for doing something that most people do anyway and just don't go to jail for it, Michael Vick got a head coaching gig at Norfolk State, which I wouldn't even be able to tell you where that is. That's Virginia, right?
Yes.
Oh, hey. Okay. So Michael Vick got a head coaching gig. I want to say this is his first one,
Yes.
right? So yeah,
He has
love that for
no
him.
coaching experience.
He has no coaching experience whatsoever. So this is gonna be real interesting. I don't hate it. I don't hate the hire. I think coaching is a very good path for him because they would have never let him into broadcast. So I'm here for it.
What do you mean? He was broadcasting on Fox.
He was on Fox
Yeah.
for an extended period of time.
Mm-hmm. It was like I don't know what show because there's like 17 million of them, but one of their sports talk.
He wasn't doing commentating though.
You mean like play by play?
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Oh no,
yeah,
no.
That's what I was talking about.
I'm not even sure.
Yeah,
that's what he wanted to do. No, he was doing like what a lot of the athletes like. He was doing the Fox version of like what Michael Irving and all those people do.
Oh, the little like interviews and crap. Yeah.
He was sitting behind a desk with some people talking ball.
Yeah. I'm not talking about that.
One of the Mondays or Thursdays. I don't know. I just know he was doing it. I don't watch any of the pregame, postgame shows.
Yeah, so that's what I was like. I'm not talking about that.
I just know. Yeah, I just know he was doing it. Yeah, no. So I think this is big. I think this is cool. For those of you who don't know, Norfolk State is an HBCU. It is.
Yes, it is.
And I found this out today. It is in the area like directly where Vic grew up. Because I knew he was from Virginia, but like he was talking about when he mentioned it, he was talking about like growing up following this team and like going to games and things. So I think this is like specifically where he grew up in Virginia, not just in Virginia. And so he was basically just like, yeah, I couldn't turn down the opportunity to help young Black men. And
it's a full circle moment. That's awesome.
Yeah, so much of being a head coach is being a motivator, right? Being able to talk to people, being able to lead. And he, both as an NFL quarterback and a college quarterback, so you're guaranteed, right, that you have to be a leader in those situations. But then also the kind of life story, coming from where he came from, making it to the league, going through what he went through, coming back, making a name for himself, right? All of the kind of things, right? When you look at it from that area, like he kind of has all that. And then he's also stayed into the game. So, and I think the biggest thing with head coaching nowadays is you really just need to be a CEO. He's someone that's going to be able to talk to the players, going to be able to talk to the boosters. He's going to set, the motivation and the temperature. So as long as he hires the right people, but he is still around the sport. He's been around the sport. He knows the people. It's the same thing with Deion, right? Like Deion's first job was at Jackson State. He had done maybe something in high school, but like that's not the same. And he went out and hired people. Obviously, we talked about Jackson State already. One of the people that he hired just took them to the national championship. He goes to Colorado. He has a bunch of NFL players on his coaching staff because he was in the NFL and he knows them. So I imagine that Vic is going to have those kind of similar connections as well as the local connections. And one of the things that we also really just talked about with Deion is the boosters bring in money, like that kind of stuff. People are going to go for Vic, right? So that is also going to boost, right? Like that, like you can consider it a celebrity hire of sorts, and obviously you want him to be successful. And if he's not successful, he's not going to be there. But they're talking about Norfolk State on ESPN. They're talking about Fox Sports, right? Like they're talking about it in places that I've never talked about it before, just simply off of hiring Vic.
His name.
That's why you do it. And then you hope that he can be successful. I have no reason to think that he wouldn't be. And I think that he's going to, which again, one of those things that we really kind of forget about coaching, but he's going to make an impact in the lives of those young men. And that is something that I think we take for granted with all of the things that go into coaching now. But yeah, I mean, I think it's great. I have a friend that works there.
A young athlete having the opportunity to be coached by Michael Vick. I mean, come on. Like, come on. And it's the same thing with Deion Sanders and whatever, because like Colorado is not about to be an NFL machine. Like a lot of these guys, like they're going to come, they're going to play their 4 years or however many years, and then they're going to move on with their lives. And it's like, but they still got that opportunity to be on his team for however long that they were there. So that in and of itself is valuable. I'm living, laughing, loving the player to coach pipeline.
Mm-hmm.
I want more of it. I want to inject it into my veins. I think that makes the most sense. You're just seeing a lot more of players getting involved in like ownership, players getting involved in front office, players getting involved in getting involved in coaching. And I like where it's going because it feels more like you're going to get a real, what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of like alluding to what you're saying, like his story, his background, those things, like people can relate to that a little bit more than like a guy who's been coaching his whole career and he didn't really play, or maybe he played in college, but it's like his whole career was really just coaching and he doesn't have that extra like experience to kind of bridge that gap. Not saying that doesn't make them a valuable coach, because there's some guys who are just like, they just have high IQs in that area, but like there's just that added value of like, you've been to the NFL. He has a particularly unique story with the whole prison thing. So yeah, I love it. I'm excited for those guys to be able to have that experience. What is that coach's name? I think he's in Florida, and he's like only been coaching there for like a year or two, and he's already like turned the program around. I don't know why I can't think of his name. He's a previous NFL player. I will find it. I will Google it. He's been all over Twitter because he also has like taken a school who like nobody cared about to like these new heights in football. And he like, oh my gosh, like he just retired from the NFL. I don't know what the heck his name is, but anyways.
Oh, Teddy Bridgewater. I think he froze. Bridgewater.
Teddy Bridgewater. Yes. Yes. Love that.
Love Teddy. Yeah. So no, I think it's cool. I have a friend that works there.
Tell him to get his tickets.
It's a she.
Tell her to get his tickets.
Listen. I'm gonna have to. But yeah, like, we went to school together, and she works in the athletic director's office. So,
wow.
Need to, figure out something with that, make that trip.
Her.
Yeah.
Now I know where Virginia is because I've been there. So that's exciting.
Yeah.
Listen, I have a Texas state education. I do not know geography. So
yeah. Everything's bigger in Texas except the textbooks. So going into the 2-minute drill, and oh God, I'm going to try to keep this to 2 minutes. I have some complaints about two specific.
Okay.
Things. One is a person, and one is a cult.
The narratives. Yes, I already know what you're talking about. Yes.
Let's call it a cult.
Cult is crazy.
Cult of the SEC. I think that there has been a lot of conversation around the playoff games, which is what we're going to come to, and about strength of schedule and about all of these kind of things. And SEC crybabies crying and saying Indiana got blown out and SMU got blown out and all of these kind of things, right? And surprisingly, none of them have said a single thing about Tennessee being blown out.
Which was the biggest blowout?
They were there all Friday.
Was it not?
It was
the biggest blowout.
They were there all Friday. They were there all Saturday until about 8:15, because about 8:15 Ohio State was up to 21-0. That's how quick it went.
And
haven't heard none of them. I haven't heard a single person. Heather Dinich, all the people, Paul Fine, all these people. I haven't seen a single word, a silence about Tennessee. And this just kind of conversation about strength of schedule and who should be there and who shouldn't be there and all these other kind of things. I just need people.
The breathe.
This is what I want. The breath. Because I'm not. If I get actually into the SEC and the people and all these kind of things, I'm going to be here forever. This is what I want people to understand. The expanded playoff was never about crowning a national champion. If it was about crowning a national champion, the BCS was probably the best way to do it. The 14 playoff was fine. It was never about crowning a national champion. It was about saying that you have given access. Right. It was saying that you have given access. It was a TV property and it was about money. With that comes the fact that because of that, you have to, within reason, treat everyone sort of equal, right? You can't expand for access and then take access, right? It can't be an SEC invitational. It can't be a Big Ten invitation.
Which is what they said.
It is 132 teams in college football. There is never going to be a consistent way to view any team. The only black and white thing that you can do is you look at wins and losses. You can't compare schedules because teams in the same conference have different varying schedules. The only thing you can look at is wins and losses. And you cannot tell me that you should be allowed to subjectively pick a team with a lesser record because you feel like they're better.
Yeah, that's
You
not how
can't
that
do that.
works. That's just not how
That's
that
not how
works.
any sport works. You win the games, and I won't keep saying this because we've said it before. The thing that blows me the most is this is not 9-3 Bama who lost to the three teams that are in the playoffs, right? Texas, Georgia, Tennessee. They did lose to
Right.
Tennessee. They beat Georgia, I think.
Yeah.
So whatever. So like this is not
Yeah.
9-3 Tennessee who lost to three playoff teams. This is not 9-3 South Carolina who lost to three playoff teams. This is not these teams. This isn't best on best and you lose. Like Ohio State before the Michigan was best on best. They lost to the number one team. Right, like Indiana was best on best. They lost to the number 2 team at that time, or whatever it was. That was a top 5 showdown. Penn State was best on best. Their only loss came. They have 2 losses now. Their only loss came to number 1 Oregon and
Ohio
playoff
State, right?
Ohio State. So like that is best on best. That is you lost to really good teams. It's not losing to 6-6 Oklahoma. It's not losing to Vanderbilt. It's not losing to Arkansas. It's not these things, and it's just so disingenuous, which is my favorite word on this podcast because that's all these arguments are. It is so disingenuous to just continue to have this argument every chance that you get, especially because like I had never thought of it this way, but it's very true. Someone else on a different podcast said this. The job of ESPN specifically, as the person who essentially owns the playoffs, should be to promote who's in the playoffs so that more people watch, they make more money. It's like it should be a positive thing, right? Like in the NFL, when they talk about the NFL, you don't hear them degrading the teams in the playoffs.
Yeah,
like in the NBA, when 40 and 42 team gets to the play-in, they're like, oh my God, if this team gets in, they got a chance. And then that team gets swept, right? Like they don't, oh my God, why is this team? But like they hype it up. They do the commercials, they do all these things because they want you to watch. And it's only in college football that this team gets in and they just and the company who owns the rights to the playoffs, who shows almost all
owns
the games,
messaging,
who gets all this money, who sets the media, who does all of this. They're the only company who then allows their employees to spend the entire time disparaging the teams that made it for the benefit of not even good teams, but bad teams. Right. And so it's very frustrating and very annoying. It's unfortunate, and we'll get into it. It's unfortunate that Indiana did not play well. It's unfortunate that SMU did not play well. But based on their record, both 11-1, you cannot leave them out because you feel like it.
Because you want SEC to be in. That's the thing that's frustrating to me because I think it's a combination of SEC teams, and it's a combination of the brands of the teams in which we are talking about, right? So then you have that whole conversation of you left Bama, the Bama, out of the playoffs. You know what I mean? Like that kind of crap. So I feel like it's clouding people's brains because it's like, but if we're talking about the football, Bama didn't deserve a spot. Sorry. Y'all can make it about, Indiana didn't have a marquee win and SMU didn't have a marquee win and we didn't have this and we didn't have that and we didn't have this. But you know what we did do? We won.
And not only that, though, right? Using blowouts as the arguments is crazy because there are BCS games, which for those of you who don't remember or just don't know, the BCS was when essentially a computer program picked the 2 best teams and then those 2 teams played for the national championship. There were blowouts. In the 14 playoff, there were blowouts almost every year in the first round. And those are supposed to be the 4 best teams in the country. And there are blowouts. And it wasn't tied to conferences. And there are blowouts every single year, right? And then this year there's blowouts. In the NBA, right? You get 7 chances. 7 chances.
7 times.
And it's only 30 teams. 7 chances and teams can't win a game. Get blown out in all 4 of them. In the NFL, blowouts, right? Like I think someone did the math and like last year's first round NFL games, the wild card, the average margin of victory is like 15.
Mhm.
And this year, this college football playoffs with 19 blowouts happen all the time in the playoffs. The playoffs is never it's never about crowning a champion, right? Because if it is, the NFL wouldn't have went from 12 to 14 to put more teams in, right?
Mhm.
If it was just about crowning a champion, the NBA wouldn't have went to essentially 10 teams with the play in,
It's
right?
8.
But
Well,
it's effectively 10 because the play in.
they have the play-in now, yeah, for that
So,
8th
like,
spot. So,
yeah,
yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah,
effectively 10 teams fighting for 8 spots, right?
yeah,
They
yeah.
wouldn't have done that if it was really about getting the best teams in.
No, it's
It's
about
about money,
viewership.
it's about
Yeah,
access,
yeah.
it's about viewership. But in the same time, those companies hype these teams up and they say, "Oh my god, if they get a chance, if they get in and they get in, and then the Lakers get in, and then they lose in 5 games to the Nuggets or whatever." And it's like, "Oh man, they tried," right? Like, but only in college football do you disparage these teams and these programs and these kids for something that happens in every sport. And this is the
Literally every
largest sport.
sport.
It's 130 teams. So it's just
Everybody
dumb.
can't get in every year. Your favorite
Yeah,
team is not gonna be in every year. The team that you feel like deserves it more than the other. I mean, hell, Florida State got snubbed last year. It is what it is. Like, it 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 happens. But if we're gonna be realistic, we should never have been talking about a 9-3 team for the playoffs anyway.
yeah. And
So,
I just
uh,
think it's annoying that we have to keep having this conversation
and now they're
because
coming
it's
back to it
taking
because of this. Yeah.
away from the games. And
Yeah.
my thing is, and that's why I say that all these people, so many of these people are not actually football fans.
No, they're just fans of their particular brands and teams and whatever.
Or their paycheck. Because
Or yeah,
like even the blowouts, those games were fun for the most
they were
part.
still
Like
good games. Like,
the
it wasn't
crowd, the
ass.
energy, like all these, it's just kind of just like
The crowds were
and
crazy.
and somehow we always forget, right? This SMU Penn State game would have been a bowl game that a bunch of players would have been in the transfer portal and half of Penn State wouldn't have played.
Would've been
Oh
gone.
my
Yeah.
God, this Ohio State Tennessee game, after Ohio State lost to Michigan again, all those players are gone.
Gone.
All those players are gone.
Yeah.
Literally what happened last year with Missouri, right?
I mean, Arizona
All of
State is
these,
going through that right now. They have 12 players that
yeah.
are in the portal.
And so it's just like if nothing else, right? You're getting games that matter where the best players are still playing.
Good morning.
Because these same games would still happen, right? We would have gotten Ohio State. We probably as the third best teams in those conferences, there's a good chance that they would have gotten matched up again, just like Ohio State and Missouri got matched up. But Ohio State wouldn't have showed up for that game. Half those players wouldn't have been there, right? Like Notre Dame, Indiana, like all those players wouldn't have been there. It's just stupid that we have to have this conversation and that we forget what the sport looked like even last year, where for Missouri, this was the best game of their lives. They made it to a playoff game, and for Ohio State, they were disappointed and nobody played. Even players who came back this year didn't play in that game. You know what I mean? So it's just like it's just dumb. I'm tired of that. We have to have this conversation. It's good football. It's fun football. And I
Get
don't know
over it.
why we have to sit and cry and complain and do all this whining, especially for a program that doesn't deserve it.
And that's it. And that was 11 minutes. So now your next thing.
Speaking of crying and complaining, this one will be short. I just wish that Kirk Herbstreit would shut the fuck up. Kirk Herbstreit spent the last 3 minutes or whatever of the Ohio State game complaining about the lunatic friends of the Ohio State fan base and all these other kind of things. And he always has these words out for the Ohio State fan base and all of this kind of stuff. And he just takes everything super personal. It's probably because he's an Ohio State quarterback that nobody gives a fuck about. Like, you're probably outside of people that made it to the NFL, and even some of them, you're probably one of the most famous Ohio State alums, and nobody cares about you. But it's because of how you act. Like, you didn't do anything there, and it's because of how you act. But the thing that just bothers me the most is in one of Ohio State's biggest moments. And I would argue, based on how the players and the coaches responded, a moment that was partially fueled by the anger and angst in the fan base, to then say Ohio State fans are lunatics and that Ryan Day's a great coach and that there was no need for them to want him fired and that the only people that wanted him fired were crazies and all of these kind of things. It's just very stupid. And it's not just the lunatic fringe, because I'm not saying that lunatic fringe doesn't exist, but it's
Mhm.
not just the lunatic fringe. And I think the thing that this does for me and a lot of people is, how are you upset at fans for having a standard? You
Right.
may think, right, 66-10, that's great. The standard's being met. But as I've said on here before and will continue to say, Ryan Day himself, every single year comes out and says, we have 3 goals: beat Michigan, win the Big Ten, contend for a national championship. I'm not in the camera. 3 goals. 3 goals. His goal is, he doesn't come out and say, my goal is to win the 10 games. He doesn't come out and say, I want to just make the playoffs, right? Like that's not what he says. He says, beat Michigan, win the Big Ten, not even contend for the Big Ten, win the Big Ten, and contend for a national championship. And in 4 years, he hasn't completed a single one of those goals. So Ohio State fans are not lunatics, because unlike
For
other
wanting
things,
him to
what
be
he
what he
said he
says
wants
he
to
wants to
do,
be.
like, you know what I'm saying? Like, he offers that up. And I think the thing that people don't understand, that always bothers me, is it's okay to have different standards, right? Like, for Ohio State, the standard is winning the Big Ten, right? For Penn State, the standard is beating Ohio State and contending. For Indiana, the standard is getting to a bowl game, right?
Winning.
And obviously this year they super surpassed that standard, right? Like, everyone's talking about all the Tennessee fans that showed up at Ohio State. That's because for Tennessee,
I
this is
saw
the best
that
moment that they've had in decades. For
in
Ohio
football.
State,
Yeah, for
this
sure.
is far from the best moment, and it's an accumulation of shitty moments. So Ohio State is never going to be a program that is just happy to get there, because that's never been the standard of the program, right? So you can't compare Ohio State to Indiana. You can't compare Ohio State to Tennessee. You can compare Ohio State to Bama, who already want to fire their coach for going 9-3, and nobody's calling them lunatics, who call into the Paul Feinbaum show and do all of these things because their standards national champions. You can compare them to Georgia, who has that standard, right? But like, you can't compare us to teams that are just happy to show up and then
Yeah, of
say,
course.
because we're not happy to show up, because that's literally never been our standard, that you're lunatics, right? Like, Ohio State hasn't won a national championship in 10 years. And a lot of people say, oh my God, 10 years, at least you've won one, but that's never been our standard. So it's just, and it's not the standard that the coach sets. James Franklin does not come out and say, my 3 goals are to beat Ohio State, win the Big Ten, and contend for a national championship. He's never said that. So when Penn State goes 11-1, that's a successful season. And if he does come out and start saying that, and then he doesn't reach that, then Penn State fans should be angry. If after this season, James Franklin says, bet, we made the playoffs, we got to the semifinals, our goal from now on is to get to the semifinals every year. Like, if he says that out of his mouth,
and that doesn't happen,
then you have the right to be mad and hold him to that standard.
yeah.
And so it's just like anything in life, right? Like, you may take a cheating spouse back and someone else may not. Different standard, right? You may find someone attractive and someone else does not, right? Like, you may, you might have an iPhone 14 and someone gets a new iPhone every year, like, which you shouldn't do. But regardless, like,
Sustainability people, the
like,
kids in Congo are dying.
people have different standards for different things, right? Like me, I'll never wear Reebok. I'm sorry, I won't do it.
Okay.
I wear Nike.
What did
My wife
Reebok do to you?
my wife makes fun of me all the time because outside of dress socks, I don't wear any socks that aren't Nike. They're the most
Wow.
comfortable socks. I think they're either ugly or they're not comfortable. I won't wear any socks other than Nike. That doesn't mean my wife has to wear Nike socks. She doesn't. Like, that
Fair.
doesn't mean I'm gonna come to you and be like, wow, those socks, you have Under Armour socks on? Like, what are you talking about? Like, right? Like, it's okay to have a different standard, to want different things. Ohio State standard is higher than most.
As it should be.
The
I
coach
mean,
understands that standard. He sets his goals to that standard. And when we are upset that he is not reaching the goals that he tells us every single year are his goals, that doesn't make us lunatics. I wish Kirk Herbstreit would shut the fuck up.
thank you for coming to Jordan's TED Talk. So, moving swiftly along from Oh gosh, we always end up back on Ryan Day on this show. Always, we managed to come back to Ryan Day.
But that one wasn't even intentionally like anti-Ryan Day like some of the other ones. It's just like you can't call Ohio State fans lunatics for not being like there are some teams that never won.
For not being satisfied. Yeah.
And the last thing I'll say on this, a lot of people when the playoffs was expanding multiple times from the none to the four to the 12. So many people were like, "Oh my God, this is gonna devalue conference championships. This is gonna devalue conference championships." Ohio State fans are mad, right? They're gonna, this is gonna devalue rivalries. This is gonna devalue rivalries. You could argue that Ohio State and other fan bases, we're not the only ones, that Ohio State is some of the only true fans left in the sport because we're not okay with not beating our rival. So the 12-team playoff didn't devalue our rivalry. We're not okay with not winning the conference. So the 12-team playoff didn't devalue our conference championship, right? There are other schools where as soon as that happened, they could care less. I never need to win the SEC. I never would need to win the ACC. I don't. Who cares if I beat my rival? If we make the playoffs, it's a successful season. Yeah. So we're not the only ones, but we're a throwback fan base in that regardless of the 12-team playoff and all these other kind of things, we still want what has always been important in college football. Beat your rival, win your conference.
Period.
Because even if you couldn't compete for a national championship, you could always beat your rival.
And you had a good season after that.
Well, not everyone, but you could always anyone could always beat the rival. You could go 1-11, but if you beat your rival, you beat your rival.
Period.
For other teams, you always had a chance to compete to win your conference championship. Ohio State still cares about those things, and now we're lunatics because we won't lower our standards to just be accepted, to just find it acceptable to just make the playoffs. I just think like you can't out of one hand say, "Oh, I'm worried that this is going to devalue rivalries and conference championships and it's going to make the regular season mean nothing." And then when Ohio State fans are screaming, "We're not happy with the regular season," you're like, "You're lunatics. You still are in the playoffs." Like and it's the same people saying the same thing. Like it's the same. Kirk Herbstreit has ranted against the playoffs and all these stupid things, but then at the same time, Ohio State and it's not just us. It's not just us. It's just they focus on us for whatever reason. There's no focus on Alabama right now. Everyone's rooting for Alabama, while Alabama fans are pissed off and want their coach fired because they don't want Heather Dennison and Paul Feinbaum and all these people. They don't want these people advocating for 9-3 Alabama because they don't want to fucking be 9-3.
Right, 100%. Oh, child. And this is why I stay in my lane. And I don't look at too much of the stuff. I did see, obviously, the conversations start happening about who should be let in and all the other stuff. And maybe the 12-team playoff is wrong and letting whatever. And I'm like, okay, first of all, it's the first year. First of all, it's not even over. Jesus, it's not even over. I don't know what we're talking about. Anyways, bowl games. They have happened. Several of them.
Yeah. Yeah. So I just wanted to go through the ones that are coming up this week before our next episode. There are two that are happening today, so we can't really talk about them because we weren't able to record on our normal time because airplane travel is evil. So on Monday, which was yesterday, as you're listening to this, UTSA played Coastal Carolina. UTSA put belt to ass, 144-15.
Blew them out.
Yep. As we're currently recording, Northern Illinois is playing Fresno State. I couldn't tell you what's going on in that game because we're recording. Tomorrow, it hasn't
started yet.
No, it's on.
Oh, yes, it has actually.
Yes, it's been on for an hour and a half. Tomorrow we have the Hawaii Bowl, which is again a stupid ass bowl because you have two warm weather teams in a warm weather place, and I think that's unfair. USF versus San Jose State, and then the day after Christmas, you have Pitt versus Toledo. Rutgers versus Kansas State, which that is a game that I think is going to be very interesting. Arkansas State versus Bowling Green. On Friday, you have Oklahoma versus Navy.
Just watch football all day on Friday.
Georgia Tech, versus Vanderbilt. Texas Tech versus Arkansas. Syracuse versus Washington State. Texas A&M versus USC. Somehow I missed that game. Didn't they play this year? No, USC played LSU.
No, yeah.
Yeah, okay. I somehow didn't even know that game was happening. And now we're starting to get into some of the ranked teams, some of the
Yeah.
bigger name bowls, and some of that sort of stuff on Saturday, which we have UConn versus North Carolina. We have Boston College versus Nebraska. I will be at that
You will
game.
go
I am
there?
so excited for that game. I understand that makes me a sick person, like, to care about Boston College and Nebraska, but like, this is
It'll be a fun game though. Those games are kind of
these games are is why bowl season count. It's like, it's important, right? Like, very excited about that one, and I'm glad that I get to go. We have Louisiana versus TCU. We have Iowa State versus Miami, which
I
is
will be
also going to
watching
be an
that.
interesting game. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
how much I'm going to see because I'll be at a game. Miami of Ohio versus Colorado State. ECU versus NC State. BYU versus Colorado, which
I'm so ready.
is
I'm so ready.
hilarious because we were like two very small things away from this being for a spot in the playoffs in the Big 12 championship game, and it's now a bowl game. And I'm very happy that Colorado, that Deion is making all of his players play.
Oh, yeah.
And I think BYU, just the type of school that they are, they're probably, most of their players are going to play anyways.
Yeah.
So like, we're going to kind of get to see these two teams at full strength. So I'm excited about that one. And then we also have Louisiana Tech versus Army. And the last one that I'll mention, just because this happens the day that our episode drops, so maybe we'll talk about it, maybe we won't. On Monday, this is December 30th, we have Iowa versus Missouri. So this is the first we've had spotty, right? We've had, a bowl game here or there, but like, this is the first week of bowl games. They're on almost every single day, and then they're leading into the playoff games, which we will talk about next week, because for some reason all of these games are 10 days apart because they're fucking idiots.
Because they want people to rest.
I guess. So yeah, I don't really have thoughts for most of these games. I just wanted to tell you all what was happening and the added commentary that came in on the ones that we're excited about. But bowl season is officially here. We are in the meat of it. We are starting to get the ranked unranked matchups. We are starting to get some of the cool things that make the bowl game special. And we are still at the point for most of these teams. We're still at the happy to be here point. So a lot of these teams, a lot of their players are going to play. Once we get close to the New Year's and we get to the New Year's Six and we get to those are the we shouldn't be here. But we have a lot less of those, again, as we already talked about.
Because they're playoff games now. Yeah.
Right. So that's it. Cool. That's all. Bowl games.
Well, there were games that happened, obviously, this weekend. Starting on Friday, we had every time I see Indy, I want to say North Dakota. Every time I see Indy.
That North Dakota brand, Notre Dame who?
Notre Dame.
Go Bison. And speaking of North Dakota, North Dakota State beat their rival, South Dakota State, for the first time in like 3 years. A little
wow.
Quick, what do you say? Fun fact? A little
factoid.
Quick factoid. There we go. A little quick factoid. NC State has been for the longest time the most dominant program at the FCS level. They have their run is better than Alabama's run, and I know it's hard to believe, but it is true, and it's been over multiple coaches. For the last couple of years, they've been good but not great. Their biggest rival, South Dakota State, has beaten them and then won 2 back-to-back national championships. And so this year in the FCS playoffs, they got to face their rival again. They beat them, knocked them out the playoffs, ended their bid of three-peating. And if I'm right on where the games are, they're in the they're in the championship game against Montana State. So
a whole bunch of states I've never been to, heard of.
Yeah, speaking of the only Indy that matters, North Dakota. North Dakota State is back on top and has a chance to win a national championship. And another brief factoid, just speaking of being back on top, Mount Union, who is just one of the most successful D3 programs of all time, has had some down years to their standard. Mount Union is 30 minutes from where I grew up, has some down years to their standard, and they are now in the Division III National Championship game as well. So this has been the year
Comeback year.
for some bounce backs, some comebacks. Maybe Ohio State will
Maybe
come
Ohio
back.
State's maybe this is Ohio State's bounce back year.
Um,
Because here's the thing: the more I think about it, the more beatable Oregon seems to me. But we'll get there in a second. Anyways, Notre Dame, not to be confused.
The other Indy.
Right, Notre Dame, not to be confused with North Dakota, and Iowa. All right. I don't know what states I'm talking about today.
Yeah, I don't know.
North Dakota and Iowa University. No.
Yeah,
Notre Dame and Indiana. Notre Dame played Indiana. Okay, they did. Listen, y'all know that they played each other. I'm just really trying to bring the damn topic in. Y'all know that they played each other. It was boring. Notre Dame decidedly won that game, but also at the same time, Indiana scoring 2 touchdowns in the last 2 minutes. Not mad at it. Not mad at the effort. But obviously Notre Dame won that game, and so that therein started the landslide of home team advantage really actually being an advantage where every single home team ended up winning, starting with Notre Dame. So I fell asleep towards the end of that game because I had to be up by 6:45 the next morning to get to State College. So what are your takeaways?
I was surprised
that
like, so if you remember before, I was like, they have really Indiana has really only been beaten one way, and I don't know if Notre Dame can do that, which is just dominating them on the line of scrimmage. It is not that Notre Dame is good on the line of scrimmage; it's just that
that's not their strong suit.
Like especially on the defensive line, they're just like the two teams that did it were Michigan and Ohio State. And no one at all this season has put Notre Dame's defensive line up with Michigan and Ohio State. So I think that was a fair assumption to say, I don't know if they can do it. They did it. And so they won.
Fully.
Right?
They fully did it. They didn't cover any ground. At all.
Yeah. Their secondary had, even without their best player, who is one of the best corners, who may be the second corner drafted, or somewhere between second and third, because Travis Hunter is probably going to get drafted first, but he might play wide receiver. And then you have Will Johnson from Michigan. So he's probably going to be like the third corner drafted. And Benjamin Morrison has been out almost the entire year. And I don't think Indiana had a free blade of grass. They were covered sideline to sideline. They probably covered them. Is it the Steph Curry commercial where he gets out of bed and they're covering him all the way to his car, and they're like, "This is the only way you can guard Steph Curry"? You've seen that commercial? It's not.
Yes.
Yeah, they covered them at the hotel, on the team bus, at team dinner, team prayer, warm ups, post game, pre game,
on the plane.
On the plane. Yeah. They're in the state of Indiana. They probably took a bus.
Fair.
Some of them players gonna be covered on Christmas. like they're not gonna get to open no presents. Like it's gonna be right there. So, Indiana did not have a single free blade of grass. And you got to give credit to Notre Dame for that. Notre Dame was very weird for me because they had been dominant, but they hadn't played anyone, and arguably Indiana hadn't played anyone either. So, but I thought that meant that the teams were going to be a little bit more equal.
Even, yeah.
And whether the teams are not even, or Notre Dame just played much better, whatever the cause, belt to ass. So.
Period. I said that the vibes were there. So I would just like to say, I don't know what it is. I said something about Notre Dame. It's just the vibes. It's just the vibes. And they came out like that. They came out like, it's time for us to smack this ass. And that's what we're going to do today. And I feel like the energy was high the entire time. So shout out to Notre Dame. They're not beating Georgia, but I love that for them.
We'll save that for next week.
We have to make our prediction. No, I guess we do have time to make predictions next week, don't we?
Because the games are Tuesday, Wednesday.
Tuesday, Wednesday. Yeah. So,
question for you: did I tell any lies about State College? Get the weather, the fans,
what context?
anything. I told you multiple things. I told you in the middle of bumfuck nowhere, it's hard to get to. You're gonna have a good time. I don't know if you got ice cream, but if you got ice cream, was I right about the ice cream?
I didn't have it in me to get the ice cream. I didn't have it in me. Man. I'll tell you what happened though. So I obviously went to the Penn State SMU game And I now know what it feels like to be the teams that SMU has beat all year with the blowouts, because I just was not prepared for what we experienced. But to start from the beginning, yes, we had to wake up as a crispy. We had to be ready to go at a crispy 6:45 a.m. So that way we could drive the hour and a half from Harrisburg, not Harrisburg, Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, to get to State College. Beautiful drive, beautiful scenery, beautiful gowns. Loved, like, enjoyed the drive, but it was a drive. It was frigid. It was so, because cold is really not doing it. It was frigid. I had on so many layers. I had on earmuffs. I had a scarf over my face. I had on tights under my jeans. I had all the things on. I put the hot hands in my shoes and my Uggs. I put the hot hands in my pockets. It was it was horrible. It was so cold. But barring that, easily, like, I don't think I'm going to experience a crowd like that ever again in my life. Like, it was crazy. Like, number one, to see all these people whiting out the stadium was crazy. We obviously set a record for college football playoff attendance with like 106,000 people or something crazy there. And it's like, and I sent you the video, but I obviously will post it on our Instagram. But like, you literally, like, I panned around the whole stadium and everybody's wearing white. And then you see one little bitty sliver of people in like black and red, because that's the SMU people. And then the whole rest of the stadium is white. And like, the noise, the amount of noise that these people made, like, it was so cool. And one thing I love, because SMU doesn't necessarily have this, because we don't really have a culture built around football just yet, whereas like all these other schools have decades and decades of years of culture around football built. So like, they were very regimented in how they managed the game. Like, anytime a third down came up, they played the same song. Anytime they had a takeaway, they played the same song. They did the same chant. Anytime, like, it is very, very, like, the whole crowd knows what's going on. They all know the chants. They're all like, so that was really cool to witness. And also, the Penn State people were lovely. The fans, they were so nice. Like, these people were so lovely. Like, it was obvious that we were not there to root for their team, and they were just talking to us in line. They were talking to us in the stands. They were asking us where we're from. They were like telling us about all the good places to get food. Like, they were so lovely, which I was not expecting, because my experience with fans from Pennsylvania are Philadelphia Eagles fans as a Cowboys fan, and those people are awful. So I just
like, that's totally so different culture.
It is.
So yeah, Philly's crazy.
It is. It was really funny because they had like a little feature video where they talked about they have 46 players or something like that in the NFL right now. And they showed, like, I guess there's a Steelers player who's from Penn State, and half the stadium started booing. So that was awesome. The drive back was booty cheeks. I think it took us like over 2 hours to get back, because the traffic leaving out of State College was horrid. And then, so we had a chartered flight that we purchased and then sold tickets to. And so I was on the chartered flight, 106 person plane, and smallest plane I've ever been on in my life, and got to State College perfectly fine. And then parked the plane outside for a day and a half, and the plane didn't start yesterday on our way back. So I didn't get home until about 10 p.m., even though I was supposed to get home by 12 because the plane wouldn't start, and we had to get new planes because it was quite literally too cold, and the plane was like, I'm not used to this. So yeah, we had a long travel day, but it was great. It was amazing. It was horrible to watch us lose, but also at the same time, our players were naked. They didn't have any clothes on. So no wonder we were losing. Because I know Kevin Jennings could not feel his fucking fingers. I know he couldn't. I don't care what nobody says. He had no clothes on.
Yeah, I would say, like, a lot was made about weather. And I do think even the weather in the Ohio State Tennessee game affected Tennessee a little bit.
Those buffoons coming out there with no shirts on. I was like,
even though, like, it does get cold in Tennessee, I understand geography, but it's not the same.
It's not.
But the biggest difference in weather was Dallas going to State College, which not only is cold, again, mountains.
It's a different kind of cold.
It's higher.
Elevated cold.
And then Penn State is specifically in a valley.
Yeah.
So it's a constant wind tunnel. So like,
it was awful.
It's different.
And it snowed. It was also snowing
Yeah, so
that
like
day.
that is
So
definitely the biggest weather difference. Like someone from Dallas who's a reporter who was at the game posted like 13 degrees, and then they're back in Dallas and it was 51, and they were like, okay, I may have underestimated the weather. Like because like they went there and then they came back to Dallas where they live, and they're like, okay, maybe
like
maybe this did have a minor effect. So if
no,
anyone
literally.
was
I walked
affected by
outside
the
today.
weather, I definitely think it was them.
Yeah, and they talked about that during the Notre Dame Indiana game where they were showing like the temperatures because it was pretty. Did I just say Notre Dame Indiana? Yeah, I did. I said it right. They were talking about the temperatures because I think Notre Dame Indiana was somewhere around the same temperature, like 20s, and then obviously y'all's game was 20s,
It
and
was
then our
colder.
game was 20s ish, like, and then the Texas Clemson game was like in the 60s,
Yeah,
and I'm like,
totally fine.
this is ridiculous.
Great.
Like they're up there in a balmy 61 degrees. We're up here
Yeah,
freezing our asses off. And I do think that that was underestimated on a lot of different levels. I don't want to speak too much about what I know about the team schedule and the process and what I don't want to speak too much about that, but I do not agree with how we prepared. So
yeah.
it sort of is what it is at that point. But here's the thing. I didn't watch Penn State play football a whole lot this season, just because I kept missing things and whatever. I was watching other games. But I do remember you continuously saying throughout the season and what you said last week that you were not particularly impressed with them. I agree. I was not impressed. Yes, obviously the score says that we lost 38-10, but there was a lot of times where our defense was very much stopping them and was
Yeah.
very much making an impact.
I
So
mean,
it was just a matter of our offense could not produce after our defense came and took care of things.
and specifically, you gave them 21 points off of turnovers. And
In the first half,
if I
yeah.
remember correctly, before that game, SMU had only allowed 34 total points off of turnovers.
Yeah.
And so in a 38-10 game with 21 points off of turnovers, 2 being direct pick sixes and the other one being essentially in the red zone, that is a 17-10 game. Like if you take away, and especially, and I hate to do this, but sometimes it's true, other times it's not. Sometimes it's not fair. That wasn't Penn State making plays. At least the 2 picks.
I agree.
I can't remember the third interception. I think that one was.
It wasn't
play.
It was
but like the 2 pick sixes were horrible throws. Like players were open. And then like he threw first of all, he could have just ran to pick up the first down because it was 4th and 1. But
he's a good runner.
That guy was wide open and he missed him, and that's a touchdown that helped with momentum. So it's like it's not that Penn State didn't play well. I think they did, but SMU also played so bad on offense that
so
it
below
made
our
the
standard.
game seem so much worse than it was. And you do, of course, have to give credit to Penn State's defensive players, but like Penn State, you don't earn 2 pick sixes. I'm sorry. When that happened, like that is such luck of the draw. Like
that's thrown to you. That's drops in your lap.
The first one was
like
the second one was like an 80-yard pick six, and SMU couldn't tackle. Like and the guy
because it's cold. It's hard to tackle in the cold.
He wasn't running that fast and he wasn't running that hard. But he literally, it's like some of the worst tackling I've ever seen. And so it's like
it was cheeks.
The thing that I hate the most that's going to come out of this game is that all the people acting like SMU didn't belong there. And it is unfortunate that they picked the worst time to play their worst game. But you can't give a team like Penn State unforced errors. You just can't. And eventually Penn State's offense did start to figure it out a little bit.
They did towards the end,
You gave them 2 pick sixes.
Yeah. And we started to figure it out towards the end too. And that was the gag.
What was the other turnover?
So it was a turnover on downs. It was a turnover on downs. It wasn't a pick.
There was a third interception, but what was the one that led to the touchdown?
So are we talking about the 21 points in the first half? Because the first 2, like I said, like you had said, were pick sixes. The third one was a turnover on downs, and we were in the red zone. Like we were in their red zone. So
okay.
And that's how they ended up scoring. Yeah.
So I knew something happened where they got the ball at like the 18 or something.
Yeah. It was a turnover on downs. Okay. So that was the thing that was frustrating. And then obviously, like again, I'm not saying Penn State sucks, But, Kevin got sacked a lot because Kevin seemed to have been playing in a space of like desperation for what it seemed like the entire game, where he's just running around in the pocket, running around, running around, running around, running around. It doesn't seem like he sees anybody that's open. Then he had a series of plays in the third quarter where he just kept running out of the sideline and throwing it down, throwing it away. And I was just like, he just couldn't, in my opinion, it didn't seem like he really gained any composure at any point. And then he kept getting sacked and he kept getting sacked and he kept getting sacked. And that crowd is fucking insane. Like I said, like to the point where we did have to call timeout because they couldn't hear each other. Like he literally could not make the play call. So, to me, Penn State is a case study in home field advantage. Like,
absolutely. Yeah,
they're a case study in it because also the silence when their offense is on the field, that's shit. That's that type of shit that you just can't, you don't get that everywhere. You don't see that everywhere where every 100,000 people are all on the same page.
Yeah.
I've never seen anything like it. I've truly never seen anything like it. And that's coming from a place of genuine admiration as a sports fan. Like there was a point where I couldn't even be mad. Like to play for a crowd like that, of course you're going to go at 38-10.
Yeah.
Like,
and so I pulled it up just because to look at it, right? So first drive, Penn State 3 and out. SMU drives down and they get all the way to the Penn State 19. If he runs, he picks it up. Or if he makes a pass that he could easily make, they get a touchdown.
Yeah.
Penn State then punts. Then they get the interception touchdown. And then Penn State downs. Then they get the interception touchdown. And then SMU punts. And then nothing. Penn State 4 plays 9 yards, another nothing, another downs, right? So in the first half, they stopped Penn State on downs, which means they stopped that Penn State didn't pick up the first down twice. And then Penn State gets to the Indiana. What
school are we talking about?
SMU gets to the Penn State, gets to first and goal from the 6 and throws an interception.
Mm-hmm.
Penn State goes on a huge drive, touchdown. And that's when the downs happens at 4th and 3. They were at the SMU 46. They weren't, but then he lost 8 yards running around. They got the ball at the 38-yard line and scored a touchdown. SMU in the first first quarter, got into the Penn State red zone twice, 0 points. Yeah. Gave up 2 pick sixes. Only one real drive, right? One real drive. And then after that drive, this is all in the first quarter. This is all in the first half. Then after that drive, they downs just like nowhere, just a bad play. And Penn State gets the ball at the plus 38 and scores a touchdown. That's just that. It's taking away from yourself. 2 trips to the red zone, no points. Giving away 21 free points. Penn State had one
real touchdown.
Again, not a negative for Penn State, right? You play the game in front of you. They did what they had to do. They played well. Perfect game script for them. But they scored 28 points, and one of them was on a traditional we line up, we take the
drive.
Ball, we drive, right? And then after that, Penn State, and again, some of it is various things, but Penn State only scores 10 points in the second half.
Only 10 points in the second half. And that was why I came to the conclusion of okay, I'm not impressed. You beat us, but to be fair, if we were the SMU team that I know that we can be, we're having a different conversation. We're having a fully different conversation because it's so not like us to make it to the red zone and not score. That is not a part of our identity as a team. If we're in the red zone, we're scoring for the most part. We're in the red zone, we're scoring. We don't have that problem like some of these other teams. So that's why I'm just to make it to the red zone twice and not score, that's already cheeks. To throw not 1 but 2 pick sixes. I always think about the psychological element of things. That's disheartening.
Yeah.
To have that happen back to back like that. And then you're fucking freezing your ass off because all of those guys over there were freezing. None of them were wearing parkas. None of them were putting on any jackets. None of them were sitting on the heated benches. None of them were doing any of that, which choices. And yeah. And the crowd is, like I said, the crowd was debilitating. And that's not me making excuses. I'm just saying, like, there was a lot of things that happened for SMU that were out of character. So that was hard to watch. And even Coach Lashley said at the end of the game, listen, y'all gonna say whatever y'all want to say about SMU because y'all do that anyways. But we didn't come out and we didn't play our best. This is not who we are. And it sucks that our season has to end like this because this is not who we are.
Yeah.
But you know, it happens to the best of us. I feel like we're a ways away from a real run at the championship anyway. Like I do think we're a ways away from it, but I don't think that we are not ready for that moment or not able to produce. I think it's just a matter of like getting more high level games like this under our belt. Like I'm looking forward to our schedule next year, and hopefully we're playing some heavier hitters next year so we can kind of like get some bigger wins, if you will, under our belt. So that's the biggest thing is I think scheduling wise, like we got to take a look at that next year and make sure that we have certain teams that we see before the postseason. But yeah.
And to credit Penn State, because I don't think we did that enough, but to credit Penn State, Abdul Carter, absolutely unblockable. He had a great game.
God. Yeah.
And Penn State's linebackers played really well. I mean, they did, like, again, and that's like, I didn't want to say that to take away from Penn State. They did play very well. Maybe not so much on offense, but they played to the level that they played all year on offense, in my opinion. But the defense played excellent. They took a team who was not used to the weather, who was a little smaller, who was whatever, and they did what they wanted to. And when they got their chances, like interceptions, they wouldn't be tackled, right? You do still have to go to, like, right? You still have to make it to the end zone. And so they played well. They used all that stuff to their advantage. And now they get to go on and play Boise. So shout out to Penn State. I was happy.
And this is something Penn State has been chasing for a while. So it's like, I love that for them. Truly, I love this for them. I love this for this school because I know that they want to be in the playoffs. They want to be in this moment. They want to have their chance. So
Penn State is one of the fewer like big fan bases that I don't have ill will towards because a lot of fan bases are very much pot calling the kettle black when it comes to Ohio State, or they're like very jealous of Ohio State, and you get a lot of weird things like
we just have a bunch of haters.
like Oregon came in and immediately decided to hate Ohio State for no reason. And it's like it's not gonna be a rivalry, like, you know what I mean? Like it's like it's just,
it's like we can be beefed up a little bit, but it's not that serious.
It's just you know, like they just came in and like and just really weird stuff. Tennessee fans were tailgating with Michigan, like fucking blow ups and stuff. Like just a lot of fan bases are weird when it comes to Ohio State. And Penn State, it's not that they like Ohio State. It's not that we're all buddy and friend. They're just they're focused on their fan base as they should be. They have their own goals and their wants and whatever. And I don't have a whole lot of ill will towards them. So I'm happy for them in their program. Their head coach is Black. They're in the Big Ten. So I mean, it's about time. And whatever happens, they didn't beat Ohio State. So it's a win-win for me. Like, you can do whatever the hell you want to. You still lost.
You said win your losses, and that's fine with me. Oh my God.
Texas Clemson. I will be honest, this game was better than I thought it was going to be. It's also
I missed the whole thing.
I missed a decent part of it because I went to the bar to watch the Ohio State game. So I was on the train and the bar was an hour away. And so like I left and Texas was up big and I was like, oh yeah, cool, whatever. Like I'm not missing anything. And then I was like,
Clemson had a little comeback.
They got it within a touchdown in the fourth quarter, and then Texas 77-yard run game. So Texas ran for 292 yards and 4 touchdowns.
Period.
It is hard to win a game when you give up 292 yards and 4 touchdowns.
300 yards, basically.
It was so bad. It was so bad that Texas wasn't even throwing on 3rd and long. It's like, 3rd and 10?
We'll just run
hand the ball 13 yards. Hand the ball 12 yards. Like we don't even need on third down. Like, we're just gonna hand the ball off, and it wasn't like surrender runs either. It was just like, yeah, we're gonna get this. Like, we're averaging like 10 yards a carry. So they had 2 running backs go over 100 yards. One 14 carries for 146 yards, 2 touchdowns. He had the 77-yard touchdown, and then Quintravion Wisner. Yeah, the Quintravion Wisner, who was the bell cow for most of the game, had 15 carries for 110, 2 touchdowns. I mean, even the backup running back.
Oh yeah, Jared Gibson, 9 carries,
35 yards. That's solid. Like, they just did whatever they wanted to.
Love it. Quinn had a good game.
Yeah.
I mean, 202 yards is not bad.
Yeah, Cade Klubnik probably had one of the better games that he's had.
Oh yeah.
He threw for 336 and 3 touchdowns. He led them back, right? Like, it was 28-10 at halftime, and they could have very easily given up, and he kept fighting and things like that. I've never been the biggest fan of his, but if you take his, I don't remember so much about the ACC championship, but if you take 2 of his last 3 games, which would have been this one, and then would have been the last game of the regular season against somebody when he let it come back, or maybe I don't remember. 2 of his last 4, they had a really crazy comeback against somebody where he ran for like 50 yards and won the game. I don't remember what that was, because was that against South Carolina?
I'm looking at South Carolina right now. He had 280 yards. I'm trying to see. They lost. They lost to South Carolina.
So that's what I thought. So what game am I thinking of?
Are you thinking about? Hold on. Maybe was it Pitt? Maybe it was the Pitt game.
It was Pitt. They were losing. Yes, they were losing to Pitt, and he willed his team past Pitt, 24-20. He had a game-breaking.
Oh yeah, he had that long run. Yeah. That was Pitt.
50-yard touchdown run.
Yeah. I just watched a little.
It was exactly a 50-yard touchdown run, and that game he led his team in rushing as well. So, like, if you take some of the games that he's kind of added on at the end, it's looking like he may be kind of living up to some of the hype. It took him some time, right? And if he wasn't at Clemson, I'd maybe be more willing to give him some grace. I don't hate the kid personally. I just don't like anything about Clemson. But he's one of those guys who came in with a whole bunch of hype, was a little shaky, but now going into end of his second year as a starter, he's on the up. And the way he's played recently, if you're a Clemson fan, it gives you hope that
should be happy with that.
Figure out some other things on your team, you can be good again next year. Luckily, Dabo doesn't believe in wide receivers, so they're not going to be that good. But he is a good quarterback, and he's going to be working his way into, I think, some draft conversations because he has the size and he's going to go. I think it's
6'2".
Yeah, so I think that I mean, he played well, right? He played well. They ended up losing the game, but he played well. He brought his team back. He didn't give up when they could have. But you can't do anything, especially as the quarterback, when your team is giving up 292 rushing yards and 4 touchdowns.
And that's just the black ass bottom line of it. Yeah. I saw the last 2 minutes, so they were winning by that point. But yeah, it's another home team win. So we're sensing a trend here. But that was the closest game out of all of them, and that was still a 14-point margin. So to the last one, obviously
Indiana was the closest, but that was fake because
you're right. No, you're right. Yeah, that was a 7-point. My bad. I really don't want to believe that Notre Dame and Indiana played each other. Like, I just it was North Dakota and Iowa University. Ohio State and Tennessee. So I watched it. I promise you I did. But then when it went 21-0, I was like, what am I watching?
Yeah.
Because I don't even know if Tennessee was there for real. I mean, there were people and they had orange on and they were playing football. But were they there? I was so irritated with that ugly ass power move they tried to do coming out there shirtless. Like, oh, the cold doesn't bother me anyway. It does.
Yeah.
It did.
Especially because they then put on their shirts very quickly. Like, it was very much like a couple. And I saw someone who's a former Ohio State player. He was like, it's also not cool when you do that, but you're all lathered up in Vaseline
Yeah, like why
to
were they
try to
greasy?
because they were trying to stave off the cold because Vaseline clogged your pores. I don't know if it actually works, but that's the
Okay.
theory. It's the theory, and if it clogs your pores, I think it's something with body heat or whatever. But it's like if you had to do all of that, you should have just came out with the
Put the
shirt.
shirt on.
Yeah.
Put
So
the shirt on.
I
Jesus.
yeah, for everyone who has listened to me crash out this year, this is why, right? This is
Because y'all
why.
should have been.
Because this is the team that we're capable of. This is
Yeah.
the roster that we have. This is the wide
Yeah.
receivers. This is the defense.
Jer-
Like this, if we played like this 80% of the time, we would win the national championship for
Undefeated.
sure. Like and so it's it's hard to root for this team when you know that this is possible, and then they give you the Michigan game, they give you the Nebraska game, and so and honestly, the game could
Yeah.
have been worse, right? Like you can't like I'm not gonna complain about refs in a game that we won, but their interception that they got that stopped a touchdown drive. I don't think his foot was actually on the ground when he had control of the ball, but
I saw
even
that.
before that, that was pass interference. Like
1000%.
Jeremiah Smith got tackled in the end zone before the ball was
Like
there. So like
I
that,
saw that too.
and then on that next drive or the drive after that, one of the drives that they score on, they negate an Ohio State interception for the absolute worst roughing the passer call I've ever seen in my entire life.
Oh, I
They
remember that
they
too.
tried to do the NFL thing and say it was a body weight thing, but the quarterback jumped in the air to throw the ball, landed in the guy's arm, and the guy fell forward.
That's not a tackle.
And it's like if the quarterback had 2 feet on the ground, he probably wouldn't even fell to the ground. Like the
Yeah.
guy had momentum, but it's because he was in the air. Like he jumped and the dude basically caught him in the air, and then kept his
And everybody
momentum
fell.
and
Yeah.
they fell. Like I'm watching
Yeah.
football, it's like I'm like, man, I don't like I remember playing football, but I forget how much of football is just picking yourself up off the ground. And so they negated interception because of that. So and of course, Ohio State stopped playing in the fourth quarter, so it could have been worse there. They put in their fourth string quarterback.
Fully. I
I
was
think
like,
hilarious.
who are these people? I don't
Yeah,
even know who
like
these people are.
every quarterback on the roster except the walk-ons got a chance to play. So yeah, I just think that this is, for those of you who don't understand, this is the reason of the various Ohio State crash outs. This is why our fans and the lunatic fringe and all of that kind of stuff, because this is always possible.
Yeah. They even said on the broadcast, they were like, you could tell that there is a marked difference in the way that Ryan Day is coaching. Like almost with Michigan, he was coaching not to lose, but in this game, he's coaching to win.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that I've said before on this podcast, and why it's always hard to pick Ohio State games, and I'm going to have trouble picking the Oregon game next week. Is it's what Ryan Day is going to show up?
Yeah, we don't
Right,
know.
like
Yeah,
Ryan Day, especially now because he's with Chip Kelly and he's not calling the offensive game plan thing. Ryan Day is one of the brightest minds in college football. He is one of the best quarterback developers in college football. He is. Will Howard is by far having his best year as a passer, and he's been with Ryan Day for 6 months, 8 months, well, longer than that now. He got there in January.
a while.
It's been
a
11
year.
months now,
Yeah.
but the season starts in August. He was there for 8 months, right? And so, yeah, he's all these things, but he gets into his mind sometimes, and things like the Michigan game happen, and I say this all the time, and I've said this for a while. I'm not anti Ryan Day as a person. I think the Ohio State job is too big for him.
Yeah, you said
Because
that.
you, as a coach, you can't have the moments that he has where he just shuts down and forgets what he like. He forgets, right? Like what he's capable of and what this team is capable of. I mean, he forgets that he has the greatest. Jeremiah Smith has over 1,000
Oh my
yards
god.
and 14 touchdowns, and he's 19.
Oh my gosh, who
He
is that
has
kid?
arguably the greatest freshman wide receiver of all time. And if he's not the greatest, the only people
One of the
in
greatest.
comparison is Calvin Johnson and Julio Jones. I'm
Oh yeah,
sorry. If that's who you're
that's good
comparing,
company to be in.
if you're like, no, he's not the best. Julio Jones, okay, fuck it. Like
Still,
if his
I'm
only
free. Like,
competition is Calvin Johnson and Julio Jones, all right.
top three.
Fine,
Like, what are we
fine.
talking about?
Yeah,
Yeah,
fine.
yeah. He was
Yes.
amazing.
Two
He was
Hall of Fame
amazing.
wide receivers. Yes, of course. No, he's not better than them yet. But he's in the conversation. I'll take
Yeah.
it. So it's just like
And when you
I
use
think
him, look what happens.
right. And I think that sometimes the Ryan Day would be the perfect coach at so many schools. Just not Ohio State. The standard's too high. The fans are like, it's just whatever, right? But then he does things like this, and I have not changed my opinion on him
Makes you
because
almost want to love him. He's like a dog who like kind of
like,
peed on the carpet a little bit, and you're like, oh, but you're so cute.
like it's like a toxic relationship. He's love
It is,
bombing. It's
yeah.
like he's
Yeah.
love bombing us, right? He went and got a job after you begged him to get a job and help pay some bills. He took you out for
No.
your birthday. He paid your phone bill, right? He's been at his job for 3 weeks and everything seems good. And then he's gonna quit his job to go be a
No.
rapper. Like
No.
that's what he's gonna do. And you're gonna find out he had women in your car. You're gonna come home and there's gonna be weed guts on your kitchen table again. And you're like, oh my God, like what happened? You were doing so good. And it's just like, and then as soon as you get ready to break up with him again, he found another job and he's taking you to get mani pedis and you got flowers on the bed and chocolates. And you're just like, oh no, but he loves me. Like he's love bombing us.
Oh my God, you are so
freaking
out of
toxic.
control.
It's a toxic relationship.
It is. You are out of control. Oh my gosh.
And so yeah, it's
I hate it here.
Ohio State shows up with this Ryan Day, they can beat anybody. But are they going to show up?
I don't know. Here's the thing, and we'll talk about this next week. But I think particularly when we're talking about Ohio State versus Oregon, you do have to factor in the last time y'all played each other as part of this whole equation. Like it's not just which Ryan Day is going to show up, which team's going to show up. It's also we almost beat these niggas.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, let's go out here and actually do it this time. So there's also that. But that'll be fun. That'll be so chaotic if that happens. Like the way that I will be relishing in the chaos.
Yeah. And I think one of the things, and this will just be my one sneak peek about the Oregon game, is it is very clear that our defensive coordinator finally has full control of the defense because inside baseball, Ryan Day wouldn't fire the defensive line coach who's like 75 and is a legend. But because he's 75 and a legend, when the defensive coordinator said, I want to play with 3 defensive linemen. I want this guy to do this. I want to do that. He said no. And he's 75 and a legend, and Ryan Day let him say no. Yeah. And so you can tell, right, this guy's been a defensive coordinator at Oklahoma State. He's been a defensive coordinator at Duke. If you looked at his defense anywhere else, and you looked at his defense at Ohio State up until after the Oregon game, it wasn't the same because he couldn't mix the fronts. And he was doing all things in the back end, but he couldn't mix the front, so he couldn't get his unique pressures and things like that because the 75-year-old legend, and I keep saying that because I don't want to disrespect him, but he needs to go hang out with his fucking grandkids and quit playing coaching. At this point, he said no. And so Ryan Day finally sat him down and said, I'm tired of teaching you this lesson, old man. And he backed the defensive coordinator who he should have backed. If you don't get that SpongeBob reference, and I'm not saying you, I'm talking to people listening. If you don't get that SpongeBob reference, I'm disappointed in you. But he told him, I'm tired of teaching you this lesson, old man. And now you can see it in the rotation. You can see it in the different fronts. You can see it in the occasional 3-down fronts and the blitzes and things. That is going to be a factor in that game. That is going to be my one sneak peek. That is all I'm going to say, because I don't remember the stat. It's either 0 or it's 2. And I know that's weird to say one or the other, but I know it's either 0 or it's 2. I don't remember exactly which one. Ohio State has either allowed 0 or only 2 passing touchdowns in the 7 games since they played Oregon. That is how good the defense has been.
Love it.
Even in the game that they lost, they allowed 13 points. Like, you know what I mean? Like they haven't allowed. Oregon is the only team that has scored more than 17 points. 13 games Ohio State's played.
Yeah.
Oregon's the only team that scored more than 17 points. So the defense is fully functioning.
It's getting there. Yeah, it's
Like
there.
this is this game, right? This game is the reason for all the crash outs because you know it as a fan, you intimately know it's possible, and you're not getting it, and it's solely because the coach just didn't show up. So
That's how it feels to be a Cowboys fan.
yeah, like Ohio State, yeah, and I'm sorry, Tennessee, you weren't good enough. I think the
Tennessee wasn't making it past the first round
yeah,
regardless. It didn't matter who they were playing.
I think the funniest thing about this is like it just destroys the SEC argument, right? Because like they're like, oh, we're so tough, all this other kind
Look
of
at all
stuff.
the teams.
And Ohio State has 2 losses, didn't win the Big Ten, whatever, and 42-17. And it could have been worse if Ohio State didn't legitimately take its foot off the gas to rest its players and put in nobodies. And then Tennessee got a touchdown drive late in the fourth off the back.
One singular touchdown drive, yeah.
So, and then their other touchdown drive was helped by one of the most egregious pass interference calls I've seen all year. So yeah, it's just like honestly in years.
Not in years. Yeah. I'm crying.
So the last thing that I have to say about this is Tennessee, you're the type of program that celebrates a lot of fans going to another team stadium.
Bro, they wouldn't stop talking about that on the broadcast. I was like, okay.
Good job. That is where you are at. Ohio State is the type of place that their fans, enough of them, were so disappointed in the program that they didn't go, which allowed you to have so many people because we're in different places. The thing that I thought was the most funny, though, is that I've heard between 20 and 30,000. That's a lot. That is a lot. But Ohio Stadium seats 103. So it was 20 to 30 out of 103 when you looked at all the angles, unless you were just looking at their visitor side. It was very much a scarlet out. I was very happy with the fan base. I was happy with the coordination. For those of you who don't know, the scarlet out is new for Ohio State. We've only been doing it for 2 or 3 years. Like it's like Ohio State, for various things, let's be honest, Ohio State hasn't had the best end-game experiences, and so now they're trying to do some of those things, and obviously Penn State has the whiteout. Other schools have their versions of it. Ohio State,
we have whiteout for our first game, yeah.
Ohio State's trying to do these things now, and so like they're trying to make the end-game thing better. The fans showed up. The scarlet out is very good. Ohio State's trying to do some other things that haven't worked, so like this is starting to like pick up steam. The fans were there. It was great. Everything I've heard were rave reviews. I think it's hilarious that like Tennessee fans did all this talking on social media, paid all this money, came to the game, and then their biggest thing is that Ohio State fans weren't nice to them. And I'm like,
they're not supposed to be. I'm saying Penn State fans were nice because I'm shocked. Like, because typically you're not nice to away fans, especially considering that Penn State put our band up in the rafters.
I'm surprised they're allowed to do that. There's typically rules against
I think I think there's gonna be a rule against that now because that was jacked. Like, and then I was talking to, there was a person with us from the travel package, from the travel group, who she went to Penn State, and she said that is not typically where they put their away bands.
It's not.
They typically put it on the over on the visitor side of the field.
It's not. Like, I think I think the college football playoff missed that in their rules. And like Tennessee fans are stupid. I'm sorry. Tennessee fans were so like gung-ho about their stadium takeover. I literally saw a bunch of tweets that were like, I've never seen Tennessee get an intro video at another team's stadium.
They have to play that.
They're taking it over. And I'm like,
they have to play that. They did that for us too.
Thank you.
They have to play that. That's a part of the college football playoff.
None of the home teams control that environment. They literally get like all of the literally
this is the rules.
And this is like a little inside baseball. I've read up on this. Essentially, any team that was possible to host a game, like essentially the teams that thought, since August they had to basically provide answers to a bunch of questions, seats, schedule, how you're gonna, like all these very, 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 very minute details. They had to submit this to the College Football Playoffs Committee, and then the College Football Playoff Committee took all those details, took their rules, and gave them back a booklet that said, based on your stadium, this is what you have to do. You can't have this signage. You need to reserve this many seats. You need to have this here and this here. You need to have this many employees and this security. You need to take this down. We need to be able to have this. They probably said we need these booths for this. Like, they provided guidelines for everyone. One of those guidelines being you have to play the intro video for the other team, because
you have to.
Game, and
it literally says
so
it's required
about this thing. Like literally, you could, like, every stadium, every school has their own branding partners. The only branding allowed in the stadium was brands from the college football playoff. There were no local Columbus brands there. There were no local Dallas brands at Texas. There were no local state college. Like, it's a college, like, but it's just
college
hilarious.
Football playoffs takes over everything. When you start, as soon as you get past the regular season, the school is no longer in control of what goes on in that facility. It then becomes, because this is a broadcast thing, it becomes so many different contracts and other things. So yes, even when we got our operating procedures, SMU intro video was required to be played. There were college football playoff videos that were required to be played. They could not have any of their sponsorship banners go at any point during the game unless they were college football playoff sponsors. They then said they determined where the
ugly ass patch.
You have to wear the patch, the big ass ugly patch that they need to find a way to make smaller. They need to, or just do the gold football. We know what the gold football is.
Yes.
Just do the damn gold football. Do round 1, round 2, whatever. Keep it cute, keep it simple. I don't know what the heck that big old ugly patch was, but the point is, like, once you get past that, that is no longer under the control of the school. There's because then it would just be all Penn State stuff or all Ohio State stuff or all whatever. They can't do that. They have to still give the neutral zone field, even though we know it is not a neutral site. So anyway, we kind of already did our pregame power sweep because we kind of told y'all about the bowl games that are coming up. So we will skip to the 2-minute warning, I guess, unless because we will talk about the games we will talk about the bowl games and our predictions and our thoughts and all of that next week, because that'll be right before they play. Actually, that'll be probably the most in real time experience y'all will have, because you'll listen to us talk on Monday, and then you'll see the games starting on Tuesday.
Yes.
So get into that. Get excited about that. I don't have to travel anywhere. I get to watch football at home for the first time in like a month and a half. So I am very excited about this. But yes, I don't know. I think my 2-minute warning is not going to be 2 minutes, so I'm going to do my best. UConn women's basketball and USC women's basketball played each other at the same time as the Ohio State game. I'm not going to talk about how I was a little irritated about the timing of that, but here's the point. We had a women's college basketball game on at prime time on Fox on a Saturday night in December. So I'm not going to talk about the game itself. The game itself was electric. It was absolutely some of the best basketball I've seen these women play, but also at the same time, I've been watching some of the best basketball I've seen women play in general, because college women's basketball is fun to watch. I really more so just want to highlight the scheduling of it all. Like, I am just so happy to see a lot more marquee matchups happening earlier in the schedule to get more eyeballs on college women's basketball before we get to March Madness. I think that was a brilliant choice by a lot of these coaches, like especially Dawn Staley is a good one. Like, she's having South Carolina play these top 10 and these top 15 teams in November and December, because she understands the impact of what that is. Like, not just because South Carolina needs that test before they get to March, but more so because, like, who wouldn't want to watch South Carolina and UCLA? Who wouldn't want to watch South Carolina and Notre Dame? Who wouldn't want to watch, the top women's teams, South Carolina and TCU, play each other? Like, who wouldn't want to watch that? And who wants to wait until February when we can watch it now? So I'm just happy about the scheduling. I think that women's basketball is really on a upward swing, and it's so exciting. Obviously, our rival starts in January, so that's going to be really interesting to see how that kind of plays into the hype of women's basketball, as women's college basketball conference play will be in full swing by that point. But yeah, if you're not getting into it, like, you got to get into it. Like, it's fun. It's fun to watch. Everybody watches women's sports. Like, crawl from under that rock you're living under, Patrick, and get into it. So, yeah, it was 72-70. The game was determined within the last 20 seconds. And Paige Beckers went off as per usual. Juju Watkins is generational. I'm going to go ahead and give her that. Sorry, we're not going to see Juju. We're not going to see another Juju Watkins for at least a decade. She's amazing. she's the type of player who makes me want the WNBA to get rid of their age requirement so she can just go. So she can just get drafted next year and we don't have to wait until she graduates and all this other nonsense. So yeah. Really, really great basketball. And then I watched the football, and the football was, the football.
Yeah.
That was about 2 minutes. That was 3.
Yeah. Mine is going to be much shorter than I originally thought because we're running along. For the very long time, the reports were that the new NWS, the Women's Soccer League, was going to go to Cleveland, and then there's a little bit of hope that it was going to go to Cincinnati because Caitlin Clark, joined that
ownership group.
And now the report is that it's going to Denver out of freaking nowhere, and that was the most recent report, and it's supposed to be announced before the end of the year, very early next year. And that just reminded me of the thing that's going on in Boston, and that most of these teams get it and then they have a year or two to ramp up. Boston was announced, I think, in 2013. They were slated for 2026, so they were already getting more time than most, and now there's even talk that they may get pushed back to 2027 because their ownership group in the city of Boston have basically been revolting, and there is a lawsuit around a bunch of stuff that I won't get into for the sake of time. But Boston just agreed to a public city venture for a stadium. And I understand that this happens sometimes, but one of the things that the NWSL has said is most important to them is wanting these new franchises to control their stadiums. And this is a joint venture between the NWSL team and Boston Public Schools. And Boston Public Schools, so the middle schools and high schools, have higher priority in that stadium than the professional team does, because Boston revolted around them using city money and renovating this stadium that is near the Boston Parks or whatever. And so they're going to be maybe the only of the new, especially as we continue going forward, the new franchises that is not going to own their stadium or even have first rights to their stadium. And a lot of the ones, and not saying that this is right, but a lot of the ones who don't have first rights is because they're shared with the men's soccer team that was there first, and the men's soccer team owns it, and you're losing rights. Literally, there are a bunch of rules. You can't play more than 2 weekends. The games have to start before 8:30 and end by 11:30. You can't have a bunch of rules that I can't imagine are going to go well with the NWSL
This
scheduling.
is a professional soccer league. What are we talking about?
And I'm just it's just a joke, right? And this stuff happens because they picking these bad cities, and not just Ohio. There are so many cities in the Midwest that want women's sports, that want a soccer team of basketball, that want all these things, and they keep going to LA, they keep going out west or far east, and then Angel City, they're having a whole bunch of problems with their ownership and all these things, and they're keep inviting these teams on the coast and ignoring the Midwest. Cleveland literally had a bid where they were going to build everything new. Cincinnati had a bid where they were going to share the soccer stadium with the men's team that's there, but they were going to build them all new facilities. So they were going to have their own practice facility, they were going to have their own locker room, they were just sharing the pitch,
the actual
which
space
doesn't matter because the sports are, they don't overlap that much. And then the other thing that they said in this is that the NWSL team's practice schedule has the least priority, of all the events, right? So if there's a high school event, they can't be there to practice because this middle school event needs to be there or whatever. And so it's you don't even get to control your practice schedule. And this is going to be they've had a bunch of issues with the name. Fans voted over the name was very stupid, but it's just one of the most poorly run expansions that I've seen. They can't even get off the ground. But Cleveland and Cincinnati and Detroit and St. Louis and all of these places in the Midwest that are very excited and would run and have had women's sports before and all of these things are getting overlooked just for Boston to literally fuck this up. And now there's Boston's yeah, we're still going to be ready for 2026, but the stadium may not be fully done. And now there's like the fact that they're even having conversations about having to potentially either find a backup stadium for the 2026 season or push their start to 2027 when they've already had the longest
Oh my gosh.
runway of everyone
Yeah.
else is
Yeah.
annoying. So that was all. It's just dumb that they keep passing, and it's two things that are technically separate, but they keep passing at the Midwest, and they go to Boston, they go again to California, and they're fumbling it, and it's just like
Because they're perceived to be these big sports markets and blah blah blah. Where it's like
you lost out to Boston Public Schools.
Boston Public School. That's crazy. That's crazy. These are professional athletes. That's crazy. But that's the same issue that even the Connecticut Sun was having with where they play, because they were practicing for the playoffs and they were like, oh, we have a birthday party or something going on here, so you can't use your facility to practice for the playoffs. Like, these are professional athletes. Like, what are we talking about?
Yeah. So I don't know, man. I don't know. That's all. It was stupid. Hopefully next round goes somewhere in Ohio or at least the Midwest. I was very looking forward to an Ohio team, but also I just laughing at afar at how bad Boston's messing this up.
Oh, yeah.
And Ohio, I can tell you for sure, any of the Ohio teams, Detroit, any of the Midwest would have handled this much better, because we've been dying for women's sports there because they keep overlooking us and doing stuff in the coast. So,
Not dying.
but I mean, literally. But anyways, thank you for listening. We will be back next week. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy
Merry
Hanukkah,
Christmas.
Happy Kwanzaa, happy all the things. Happy if you don't celebrate any of that, but you have days off work. Happy days off work. Whatever you celebrate.
Happy vacation.
Happy that you can you can follow us. Please, again, subscribe, like, follow, comment, share, whatever on YouTube at Get Defensive Sports Network. And we thank you for listening. We will see you next week.